YTPC. Curmudgeon Piper coming at you again. Still smoking a cob with Field and Stream. This is a VR for Tobacco Pipes International, TPI. If you haven't seen his channel, I urge you, go give him a sub. He does great work restoring pipes. He loves good music, as evidenced by his Sinatra collection. He's doing a golf for his 100 subs. Congratulations on that, by the way. I really enjoy your channel. Enjoyed your seeing your Sinatra collection, your album collection, your Dean Martin. You wanted a story, so I'll tell you a story. True story. I worked when I turned 16 up in my hometown. I got a job working in a local family-owned hardware store, and this was back before the big box Home Depots and Lowe's and things like that were everywhere. One of those places, the great-grandfather started it, the son took it over, and then his sons took it over. So I was about into the third generation when I got a job there back in the late 80s. Well, the gentleman who started the store had 2 children, a son and a daughter. By the time I got a job there, they virtually hated each other, the brother and the sister. They barely spoke to each other. When they did, it wasn't very pleasant. Now, the brother, you have to remember, the brother, we're talking about people who are now in their, at that time, probably 50s or 60s. I was a teenager. The sister had an office in the middle of the store. Now, the way the store was set up, it was set up in downtown of my hometown, and the length of the store ran from one block to the next. So the front of the store was on Main Street, and it ran all the way through the back to another block. And so the sister had an office in the middle part. The brother had an office probably about 20 yards further in. And usually when they spoke to each other, he was standing outside of his office, she was standing outside the door of her office, and they were yelling at each other. This was a frequent occurrence. Well, it finally came to a head about 2 years into my working there, just before I graduated high school. It all came to a head. They each owned, they had inherited from their father equal portions of the business, but they just couldn't work together anymore. And so it finally came down to legal matters. And they went to court against each other. And I was still working in the same building the whole time. Well, this same hardware store, parts of it took up. Not everything in the that you sold as far as the hardware business was in this one little structure. They had other little structures up away from the main structure. So they had a warehouse up on a hill, for example, that was about 50 or 60 yards away, that housed stuff like insulation, windows, things like that. So people would come into the main part, buy the stuff, and then they'd say, well, you pull over here and we'll load it for you up on the hill. So anyway, it came to a head that they just couldn't work together anymore. So they went to court, And basically, what ended up happening was the sister, when they split the business, the brother got all of the inventory. The sister got the buildings, all of the buildings. So the brother was going to have to move all the inventory, build a new business, a new store basically, which was going to be right across the street. But anyway, he was going to have to move all the inventory and get out basically. But she was going to take over the buildings and do whatever she wanted to with them. One Saturday afternoon, when I was working, down near the cash register, and this customer comes running in, and there are no other managers. There were sons, there were family members who were managers, or they had outside workers who were managers. I wasn't a manager, but I was the only one near the floor at that time, near the door where people would come in. And this customer runs in, and he runs up to me, and he looks at me, and he's kind of in a panic. And he says, "Did you know that your warehouse is on fire?" And I just kind of looked at him and said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Your warehouse is on fire." And I walked outside, and I looked up on the hill to the insulation warehouse, and there's smoke billowing out of the insulation warehouse. So I trot back inside, trying to find a manager. Couldn't find one anywhere. The only person I could find was the brother, who was up in the back part of the store in his office. So I run up there and I go in his office, and I said, Mr. F, your insulation building's on fire." And he looked at me, and he had this very unique voice, and he said, "What? What are you saying?" I said, Mr. F, your building, the insulation warehouse is on fire." Well, he stands up, and he walks out of his office, and he walks the good 30 or 40 yards to the back door of the main part of the store, walks out into the street, looks up on the hill, and sees smoke billowing. And he walks back inside, and he goes to the telephone. Obviously, in my mind, he's going to the telephone. He's going to call 911 to get the fire department there to put out the fire that's in the insulation warehouse up on the hill. And so I'm standing there, and he picks up the phone, and he dials a number. And I'm I'm standing right beside him, and I hear the whole thing. And he says, "Yes, could I please speak to Miss M?" I said, "Miss M?" "Yes, would you please, she's busy. Well, would you do me a favor? Would you tell me that her damn warehouse is on fire and she needs to call somebody?" And he hung up. She ended up having to call the fire department. She wasn't even there. She was somewhere else in town at her house or something. She ended up having to call the fire department because she officially owned the building and he wasn't going to do a darn thing to save it. Life in a small town, folks. TPI, congratulations again on your subs. Hope you enjoyed the story. You folks have a great evening. I'll see you again soon.